Hey, y'all. Welcome back to another episode of the Watch Us Thrive podcast. Super excited to introduce to you guys this week's guest. We have Krista Dykes. Krista, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Leanne. Thank you for having me today.
Yes, super excited for people to learn more about you. We're going to be talking about emotional abuse and infidelity. You know, it's funny. I actually recorded a reel and I posted it a few days ago talking about how cheating is abusive. And that reel went viral. There was a lot of comments, a lot of women agreeing with that. And I think before me and you even started recording this episode, I mentioned that abuse looks very different for a lot of us who've been in these really narcissistic, abusive relationships. But I think people on the outside who have not experienced what we've gone through are very one-minded when it comes to when a woman is in an abusive relationship, they think of only one type, which is physical. The woman is ended up in the hospital. She has a bloody nose, broken leg, whatever it is. But there's so much more different forms of abuse that are so much more insidious because they're not seen. These scars that we have, no one can see them. But I think being in these types of really toxic relationships, that type of abuse is so much more dangerous and it's so much more harder for you to really heal from because there's so many layers that comes with dealing with these types of people. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm going to have Krista share her own story of being in an abusive marriage, but I would love for you to introduce yourself first for anyone who's meeting you for the first time, who you are, and a little bit about what you do.
Yes, thank you again, Leanne. My name is Krista Dykes. I am also the host of a podcast primarily for moms. It's called Secret Mom Hacks. As of today, it's right around 18, 19 months old. Episode 85 is coming out this week. It's crazy, covering lots of ground for first-time moms, expecting moms, all the things nobody tells you about becoming a parent and things that I wish I had known going into motherhood. So that's my podcast. I also have a community called Mom Boss Mastermind. And I also kind of consider myself like a community curator of sorts, if you will. I have created the first ever database of mom groups nationally. So wherever you are, wherever you're located, currently this is just focused on the US. Perhaps we'll eventually get global, but I have created a free resource for moms where if you're looking for community in your area, or if you just want to plug in online, whatever it is, I am here to help you just get plugged in to whatever mom community looks like for you.
Yes. Shout out to the moms. I'm a single mom, so I understand that community is so needed, especially in the beginning when we have the babies and the newborns. I know we're going to get into your story, but first and foremost, just thank you again so much for wanting to come on and share your story. We were talking and I listened to your episode on the Emotional Abuse is Real podcast. Shout out to them. We'll link your episode from that podcast in the show notes so you guys can check it out. But listening to your story sounded like I was watching a movie. Like it was crazy just thinking about the things that you experienced in your first marriage that was abusive. And there was a lot of manipulation and gaslighting and cheating that you experienced. But I just really appreciate you for wanting to come on and share it because it's not easy to talk about the really dark and heavy things that we've gone through. So I want you to go ahead and share as much or as little as you're comfortable with, like I said, of what you experienced in that relationship.
Sure. Thank you. And just to kind of piggyback on something you said, kind of to preface my story with, emotional abuse too it is so nuanced because as you get into my story, you'll hear some of what I experienced, but it's not like I was necessarily being belittled. I wasn't abused in a way where it was, you're stupid. Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? That's so ignorant. Like I wasn't being abused in that type of way. It was more of a challenging my intelligence of, oh, well, I'm sorry you feel that way. Or I'm not sure what you're talking about, or no, there's nothing over here, sweeping things under the rug or whatever. So it's so nuanced. And again, I just appreciate you and admire you for this platform you're building to empower others to share all of this and hopefully help other people just put that one step forward for whatever that looks like for them in overcoming what they're experiencing. So to get into my story, I was married for almost 10 years. So when I had first gotten married, I'm thinking I found the man of my dreams. It's not like we dated for 2 months and then jumped in and got married, 3 months later. I mean, we dated for almost a year. We were engaged for almost another year. No red flags, if you will, stood out to me during that experience. We did meet at my first job out of college. And I will say that the way we met, we really had this mutual appreciation for music and the arts. And so we had started kind of listening to some of the same artists and bands. And side note, I live just outside of Nashville. At that time, I was living right in Nashville. And so you could throw a rock and hear an amazing artist, an amazing musician, which is awesome. So we had found out that this band or this artist that we both really liked was coming to the area. And I had ended up like putting a clip of the newspaper article on his desk, like, hey, look who's coming to town. And a couple hours later, hey, do you want to go with me to that? What do you think? It didn't really start as a date. It was just like this mutual thing of like, oh, we have this artist that we both like. Why don't we meet at the show or whatever? So the next thing I know, some other coworkers are kind of starting to talk about it and like, oh, that's fun. That's exciting that you guys are going to go. The long and short of that is he never really asked me on the date. And I didn't necessarily ask him on the date. It was like, let's meet up at this. But before you knew it, it had become a date without him even asking me. And that's something you will find with narcissists, that like they want to make it seem like it's all your idea. They don't like dealing with rejection. And so a lot of times they just won't even put themselves out there. It's kind of like little by little, the stars will align and things will start going in the direction they would like for them to go. And then, like I said, they're just not even experiencing rejection or anything like that. And their plan is coming into place. So
it's very calculated.
It's very calculated. And there were some folks in the office that he was close friends with, closer than I was. And, they're all so excited and chattering about it. And, oh, you're going to meet him there. How fun. And kind of playing the part in helping to move it all. So fast forward, we start dating. He seemed like my knight in shining armor and just doing all of the right things. He proposes, we get engaged, and we get married, have a lovely wedding. I'm thinking, okay, my future is bright, and on and on. And I'm also a very driven, focused, passionate person. When we're newly married, we had met at that company, like I mentioned, but I also knew that wasn't my be all end all. It was my first job out of school. So I'm constantly like, okay, what's the next big milestone I can make? How can I help to propel our family forward? So I move forward in that regard. And along the way, I had kind of started noticing he was having a little bit of an identity crisis in what his professional next steps were. And I'm just thinking, okay, well, I'm going to support him like emotionally and cheering him on, being just a good partner and like, you'll figure it out. Keep applying yourself, keep applying to positions. And another thing along those lines, he had never finished his degree. I did finish my degree, and in today's world, you could argue that maybe that just doesn't even matter. Education is different for everyone. And I know that going to getting a bachelor's or whatever, that's not for everybody. And they can have an amazing professional career, whether they got a college degree or not. For him specifically, that was always something that bothered him. And he was very self-conscious about that. And so I think that was another struggle for him to even put himself out there, because he didn't like that rejection and those questions of why, he didn't really have answers. He was still figuring himself out, quote unquote. So anyway, I'm moving on. I get some other job opportunities, which is awesome. He's over here, unbeknownst to me, spending money in ways that were not appropriate. And again, ignorance is bliss, right? Hindsight's always 20/20. At that point in time, and just to rewind the clock a little bit, I grew up in a household where I'm an only child, but my dad was the head of the household. My mom has always been, she's, yes, honey, whatever you say, the obedient wife. We make some decisions together here and there. At the end of the day, kind of what my dad said went. And I would see them dealing with financial matters here or there. But again, a lot of times it was my dad making those decisions and having the ultimate call. So me being in this marriage, I'm kind of looking to him, not kind of, I was looking to him to make those decisions and keep our family in line. And knowing what I know now, I know the importance of having a true partner, both of you coming together and saying, hey, like keeping each other accountable, having that family budget. So we didn't have any of that. And I was noticing some spending on a credit card that just didn't line up. I'm like, this doesn't make sense. And I don't remember, I was doing all of our laundry and I don't remember this charge that you said was for a t-shirt. Like it's kind of a questionable charge. I don't remember seeing that come in the mail. You've really not new clothes lately, whatever. But okay, if that's what you say, honey, I'm going to believe you. Anyway, fast forward. I move on to another job opportunity. And this was a huge job opportunity for me. This was kind of like a dream job. And I was living in Nashville, finally getting into the music industry, having the time of my life. And we didn't have kids yet. You know, this was right around the 5 or 6 year mark, I guess you would say, of our marriage. And two, at this point, I'm like really stable opportunity, great income, great benefits. I'm the breadwinner in this case, which again, side note is like really another dig at him. Like you said, I am now remarried, not to put the cart in front of the horse, but knowing what I know now, being in a completely different scenario, my partner and I, it's not about being a breadwinner. It's just about doing this together. We're focusing our finances. This is not a race. This is not a competition. This is jointly, how can we meet the goals we have? So, but in that previous scenario, I know now he was not happy with that, and that crushed his ego a bit. But I'm not realizing this because I'm in the thick of it and I'm thinking I'm doing something awesome for our family and I'm feeling fulfilled professionally. And hey, how exciting is this that we get to benefit from this great opportunity that's crossed my path? So fast forward, I'm starting to notice some more questionable behavior from him, just as far as some internet activity, like shielding of his phone. We would be sitting on the couch and he would have his phone, you know, sitting right next to each other on the couch, and his phone would be slightly tilted. And I'd be like, what's going on? Oh, nothing, just playing a game. You don't have to hide a game. Let me see it. And sure enough, somehow he moved fast enough, hid whatever fast enough. I could never find anything directly on his phone. There was never any like immediate evidence. All I would have was these little red flags here and there and these gut reactions, these gut instincts of like something is not right and I can't put my finger on it. And so during this time period, also his father passed away. I'm very fortunate. I still have both of my parents and I'm very tight with my parents. So I don't even want to think about that. At that time, my heart was breaking for him because I wanted to be there for him however I could. It's very emotional loss. And a couple months go by, almost like more of this behavior. Now it's like the behavior's ramped up. And I realize he's going through this grieving process and I'm trying to be there and be present for him. And what can I do? And even just as a wife, like making moves on him, advances, you know, and being declined. And over here thinking, hey, I'm busy. And he was not making moves on me. Because too, right before his dad passed away, we had talked about like, maybe it's time to start a family. Like I want to have kids. There's never a perfect time to have a family, buy the house, do the career. You just have to do it. So, but then when his dad passed, we kind of, okay, pump the brakes on that a little bit. Again, I'm noticing this behavior, but I'm also just thinking like, hey, I'm not getting any younger. Our parents aren't getting any younger. Now we've lost a grandparent. Let's do this. Let's start a family. And again, just so naive, Leanne, to what is going on beneath the surface. And so he's like, okay, yeah, sure. Let's have you go off birth control. All right. So like, and I had never tried to get pregnant at that point. And so for me, it truly was just like, I know there's so many women who've wanted to get pregnant and gotten pregnant and losing the baby. And like, there's just this roller coaster of things that can go through. And for me, it was one of those things where I must have been fertile myrtle. I don't know, but it's like, girl, I can count on one hand the number of times that it took to conceive my precious baby.
Right.
And again, like I said a minute ago, I was not being hit up. I was the one making the advances. I was the one initiating. And so I find out, well, before I even find out I'm pregnant though, here's where the first bomb is dropped. Okay. So it was January of 2018 because unbeknownst to me, I was pregnant at this point. I was pregnant, didn't know it. But in January of 2018, an acquaintance reaches out to me and asks me where I am. And I'm just like, well, I'm at work. Why? Well, hey, I need to let you know, I saw your husband out to dinner with somebody and it didn't look professional. Now, at that point, he had gotten a position with a mortgage company. So he was doing mortgages. My understanding was that, and that was, he made a base salary, but like it was a sales position. So he was networking with accountants and realtors and doing all of the local networking events from my understanding. And so I'm telling her, well, he must have, maybe you didn't see anything. He goes out a lot because he has to wine and dine potential clients and potential referral sources. And then she goes on to tell me a little bit more about what this picture looked like. And I was like, well, that is strange. And so now I'm mad and sad. And I'm having all these emotions because too, that takes a lot of guts for a woman to call another woman and tell her that. So I go home, I confront him immediately on the defensive. You can go through my phone, and hands it over. And it doesn't even stop to say, you know what, I need to go to the bathroom, or like, doesn't go and try to hide anything, like just immediately hands it over. I go through texts, emails, notes, the normal things, phone calls, any mode of communication, Facebook messages, Instagram, all the things. Didn't see anything. It all appeared to be work related. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm crazy. I'm crazy. She's crazy. But still in the pit of my stomach, I'm thinking something's not right. I was seeing red flags, can't put my finger on it. Now a third party has intervened, is approaching me. I didn't reach out to this third party, right? So we move on. Well, I'm not happy by this. It sounds like you were potentially in a compromising position. Somebody saw you and it didn't look professional. I'm concerned. Maybe we need to go to counseling. Okay, yeah, we can look into that. A couple weeks later, now I find out I'm pregnant. So happy, so excited. Not only was I just finding out I'm pregnant, I found out I was halfway pregnant. I was not halfway pregnant, halfway through the process. Okay, I was like, yes, girl. I was like 25 weeks.
When you found out? Oh my God.
Yes. And because that's the thing, we conceived over the holidays. So, and both of our birthdays are in December. So you've got Halloween, you've got Thanksgiving, you've got 2 birthdays, you've got Christmas, New Year's. I'm thinking I've just overindulged. Right. I'm thinking everything's getting a little bigger because I overindulged. We enjoy the holidays. And no, turns out I was pregnant and so happy, so exciting. Within a week of me broadcasting the news that we're pregnant, a stranger reaches out to me on Facebook through a fake account, because you don't have to have a Facebook profile linked to Messenger, which I did not know that. So this stranger reaches out to me saying she's been watching me, a little creepy. And she's sorry to have to tell me this at this time now that we're having a baby, but she's been sleeping with my husband for the last couple years. Hold the phones. What the F? Now it's not just an acquaintance suspecting something. Now somebody has come forward saying they've been sleeping with him. And I'm thinking, like, this is a sick joke. What a sick joke to play on a pregnant woman. If you've been sleeping with him, prove it. You must have evidence. You must have something you can show me to indicate that there's been some foul play with my husband, right? So the next day, I'm out with some colleagues. I'm doing a site visit. We're doing a walkthrough. My messenger pops through with some new messages, including some photos, some dick pics, which is very obvious that it's him. He's wearing his wedding band. There's our bed sheets. There's that.
Can I just tell you, this exact situation happened to my sister with her ex-husband. The woman reached out to my mom on Messenger and sent the dick pics as proof.
And it's like, mic drop.
I just fucking can't. I just can't. I'm like, yo, I'm reliving 2017 all over again. It's crazy.
So I'm at this site visit and I like shielding my phone. Like, did anybody see that? And just like, I've got to go. I've got to get back to my desk and like, I've got to leave because I'm about to lose it. I'm about to explode. I don't know whether to hit a wall or scream or cry or what, but I get back to the office and I tell my team and I go to my supervisor like, hey, I'm dealing with a family issue and I've got to go. I can't be here. I'm taking my computer. I'm unplugging. I should be available later, maybe, depending on how this goes, but I can't say anything else and I got to go. On my way home, I call him and tell him to meet me home. And I don't tell him why. You've got to leave your office now. So we get home. I'm pregnant and not just like, you can see my belly now. Like I've got this belly being half baked now.
Right.
And I'm just telling him what is going on, holding my belly and just pleading with him to just be honest with me. Clearly, something is not right. Now, multiple third parties are reaching out to me with this information. I just need you to be honest with me for the sake of our family, because if I find out anything else, like I drew this line in the sand and I was just like, if I find out anything else beyond this moment, I don't know that I can keep doing this because I've now given you multiple opportunities to come clean. I've looked through your phone. You're clearly covering your tracks. He gave me, Leanne, such a story. I mean, he's like just spoon feeding me BS, just spoon feeding me. Oh, it's a troll. I must have been on Reddit and said something that somebody doesn't like. And now they're trying to ruin my family and just destroy everything. I'm like, what could you have said on Reddit to make somebody want to destroy your family?
Okay, Beyonce.
Right? So I go with it. I oddly go with it because, again, I'm just like in family preservation mode. First time mom, don't know what to expect. Fast forward, have the baby. He's like a model dad. He was very helpful and present. And then 3 months, I was on maternity leave for 3 months. It was great. I get back to work and unbeknownst to me, now the month I went back to work is when some more activity started, is when supposedly some illegal activity with him started. So that was right when I'd gone back from maternity leave. Fast forward a few months later. So when my daughter was 6 months old, I am at my office. I get a call from a detective asking me if I knew my husband was under criminal investigation. You could have hit me with a Mack truck. Like, no, I didn't know that. I'm over here trying to keep a baby alive. And there were some red flags. There have been some red flags now for the last year. Now this detective reaches out to me January of 2019. That acquaintance had initially reached out to me January of 2018. So now full circle, whole 12 months later, this detective asks me this. And the long and short of it is when I had gone back to work, he started talking to what he thought was a 12-year-old online.
Oh
and he solicited a minor, sent inappropriate photos. Now, the person who contacted me on Facebook, I did eventually get to speak with her once my ex. So he did end up going to jail. Shortly after he'd gone to jail, I had put something out on social media about in May for Mental Health Month and dealing with your past and going through therapy, and so on. And so, of course, this stranger who was watching me had continued watching me and finally messaged me as her true self and asked if I would want to get on the phone and just talk I think she was curious because she was not a minor. She was still very young. I mean, the year I turned 30, he was talking to a 20-year-old. Not just the year I turned 30. On my 30th birthday, he had a 2-hour long conversation because I went back through phone records, credit card statement, all of this. Yeah, on my 30th birthday, he was talking with a 20-year-old from out of state, just over the state line. And so anyway, this person who did ultimately reveal herself with me, she was 18 when they first started talking, and he was in his late 30s. And that's the thing, Leanne, they just kept getting younger. And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, I did find out from the detective, the minor that he was talking to, he thought it was a 12-year-old. It was the cops the whole time. So he had gotten in an online sting, basically, set a time, date, and place, sent dick pics, asked for some in return.
It's like an episode of To Catch a Predator. Oh my God.
Right. Anyway, he never showed, but he did set the time, date, and place. So the long and short of it is his charges were solicitation of a minor and sexual exploitation of a minor via electronic means. And it was one of those things, Leanne, where here I am with this baby. I'm trying to keep this human alive. I'm breastfeeding. I'm pumping at work. And while I've got the breast pump on, I'm sitting at my laptop, half doing some work, but also half like looking through credit card statements, looking through phone records. I have to give a shout out to Verizon because I had asked them for like 5 years worth of phone records, I guess it was. And it was going to cost a couple $100 for them to send it to me. And I explained my situation and what I was trying to do. And she was like, oh, honey, I'll send you those for free. It's okay.
We love that. We love that.
Thank you.
Yes.
So I get this stack of phone records like this thick, and kid you not, I'm sitting there going through with a highlighter of like, who is this? What is that? What is that number? This is a long call. How does this correlate with that trip I took out of town for work, and so on and so on? And when you add it all up over the course of our almost 10-year marriage, I found out he started cheating on me a year into our marriage. Over the course of that time, the near 10 years, there were probably 20 plus affairs. And yes, for some reason, at some point, they kept getting younger to the point where he did what he did and participated in a criminal act. And I could only put together so many puzzle pieces before I was like, I'm tired of looking. I'm tired of digging through the trash to find more things and more puzzle pieces. I found enough. And I can't do this anymore. And I've been manipulated, abused. My daughter and I deserve better than this. And I filed for divorce. He was served papers on what would have been I think it was our 9-year wedding anniversary.
Oh, we love that.
My attorney, I was like, can you just wait a day?
Yeah.
And I jumped into the dating world. That's crazy, dating.
Oh, I'm sure. But I just want to say before we get into that, like, just thank you so much for sharing that. I'm telling you guys that I'm just sitting here listening to her, and I heard the story before, but I'm like, this sounds like a fucking movie. It's crazy, but it's something that a lot of women have experienced. So I want to know for you, before you got back into the dating world, I have a history of being in an abusive relationships too. And something that I'm still working through is trust. Rebuilding trust with someone, especially you're married to this person for a decade. They're living a double fucking life. They're just a completely different person. And I'm sure that takes a toll on your trust. So how have you been able to rebuild trust with others, but more importantly, rebuild it with yourself?
Yes, that is so hard and such a great question, because this person that you have pledged till death do us part with completely violated that agreement. And you feel you're not enough, you weren't enough or whatever. And at the end of the day, it's not about you. That's what I ultimately figured out. It's not about me. It's not about our daughter. It's not about this future. It's about crap that he did not deal with and stuff he did not address. And so that trust, it is so hard. I went through therapy. I'm a huge advocate for therapy. I really focused on sharing these details in the very early, when I was first initially going through this. sharing with people that I was already very close to, just so they could understand, like, hey, she's dealing with some mess, like between coworkers and family members, and just talking through things with them. Between that, relying on those close confidants, and then going through therapy, realizing that, I mean, he was the one who broke the trust. And yes, it does. It's going to take a lot to earn it back. I knew in my gut something was wrong, and I was trusting that. And that's why, like I said, at some point I had to draw that line in the sand, because it's like, these third parties, I'm not looking for this. I had been looking for it. I'd gone through the phone. I'd gone, but it's not like I was looking for ways to get out. Things were falling into place, coming to me. And, they say what goes around comes around, right? Karma. You reap what you sow. And so I have to believe that because of what he was doing and his decisions, for me, it was just like that open door of like, how many more times do you have to be slammed over the head, Krista? Right?
Right. No, absolutely.
So trusting myself that, like, as much as I didn't want to get divorced, I'm trusting that this is the right decision for me. I can do this. This is the right decision for our family. And as far as developing trust with another person, when it came to dating, this is we all come with baggage. We've all got things that we're going through. And so for me, it was, as I'm meeting guys, who is going to handle this with care? I'm not looking to be handled. I'm not asking somebody to walk on eggshells. I'm looking for somebody to care and to say that is inexcusable, and to open up to me too about what they've been through. And you find out real quick. I mean, I felt like I was very transparent. I'm a pretty transparent person, but you're always, especially you're young and you're newly in love and all of this, you're putting on your best self. Nobody wants to talk about the scars. Nobody wants to talk about the ugly things that we're dealing with. But I think as you get older, you get to that point where it's like, you know what? We're all dealing with some stuff. So if this seems too good to be true on the surface, if you can't be real and vulnerable and open and honest with me about the crap you're dealing with, to me, that is a red flag.
Yes, it is.
That next, because I guarantee you that shiny gleam on the surface, there's some junk underneath that you're not being open and honest about. So trust is, everybody's journey of A, trusting themselves, and B, trusting others is going to look different. You certainly can't rush that. I would just say be yourself, because at the end of the day, if you are, I know not everyone wants to jump back into the dating world, and not everyone wants to get back into a relationship. For me, I had been so hurt for so long and just felt like my heart had been trashed and stomped on and set on fire, quite frankly. And I felt so unloved. And it had been a long time since I'd been wined and dined and treated and told I was beautiful, and like somebody had courted me, So it was like I was ready to just jump in and see what happened and treat it like a game. Like, oh, you can't handle this? Well, then next.
Yep, absolutely. That's how you're able to weed out the ones who are really in it for not the right reasons. And then eventually you were able to meet your now husband. So shout out to the new hubby. We love the healthy relationships that come after the toxic ones. I want to know, I actually got a DM the other day, and it was kind of similar to what you experienced. And I want to get some advice from you on what you would tell this person. Of course, I'm going to keep them anonymous, but she said she's been in a relationship for 7 years and found out last week that her boyfriend got another woman pregnant with a child that she always wanted. And since the woman who reached out to me spoke to the woman who's pregnant, now the boyfriend no longer wants to be with this woman. She feels like she was stabbed in the heart. She can't eat, she can't sleep, and it's even hard to breathe sometimes. She said, I found your page recently, and then I see women like you, and I say to myself, if they could do it, then I can do it too, and I hope it gets better. So for the woman who's listening or watching, or for the lovely lady who sent me that DM, going through something very similar like what you've gone through, especially in the beginning, it feels like you can't even go on. Sometimes it gets to that point that you don't even want to continue living because the pain is so deep. What would you tell her?
I would tell her, and this sounds very vague because it's going to be different for all of us, do what makes you happy and be a part of what makes you happy. This was something when I was dating my now husband, and I'm not going to go into his story, of course, because he has a whole backstory. I am not his first wife either, is all I will say about that. But we were both dealing with some mutual trust issues. And as we first started dating, one thing that I said to him was, you cannot make me happy. I want you to be a part of my happiness. I'm hopeful that you will be a part of my happiness. But at the end of the day, I don't look to you to make me happy. Happiness is a self-guided thing. And so do what makes you happy. And if you're in a relationship, relationships shouldn't drain us. Relationships should be partnerships. It's a give and a take. It's a both of you working together on this thing. And that's another thing as far as my story goes. My ex and I, so again, I still can't believe this. After the detective called me, I was like, we've got to go to counseling. This was when I was still putting all the puzzle pieces together. But somehow after the detective called me, I was like, we need to get to counseling. And we go to counseling and I'm sitting there bawling my eyes out, so confused, so sad, so hurt, spilling my guts, asking why and coming up with solutions and sharing all of my emotions and what we can do and what I'd like for us to do and here asking him questions. And I am getting nothing from him. He's sitting there like a brick wall, answering questions with yes or no answers that were asking for description, asking for deeper, more in-depth answers. And it was just a yes or no, interesting, kind of short 1 to 3 word responses, which were not sufficient and which did not make me happy. And so after several therapy appointments, I was realizing this isn't working. Therapy is not working. Nothing he's saying is making any sense. I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel in this relationship. So at the end of the day, you've got to do what makes you happy and finding those things for yourself personally, internally that can make you happy, but also knowing a partner is not going to make you happy, but they should want to make you happy. They should want to be a part of your happiness, answer directly, be honest, share a vision of what that future could look like. And if they're not, and if all they're doing is draining and dragging you down, as much as it sucks, I didn't want to go through divorce. Like I said till death do us part. And I meant it. And I think all of us do when we're up there in front of our friends and family. But even if you hadn't done that part yet, if you're just in a romantic relationship, if that is your vision and it's not shared mutually, it's time to just do what's going to make you happy because life's too short. It's too short to be miserable.
Absolutely. And sometimes that happiness means letting go of the toxic relationship. Sometimes it means having to really cut those ties and come back home to yourself. When I think about my own situation, it's like I was a very codependent partner. I was someone who hated being alone, who never really was alone since I started dating when I was 14. I'm turning 36 this week. So I've always had some type of person in my life. But there was such a huge lack of not knowing who I was on my own, which is why I attached myself to these really toxic relationships and just had the mindset back then of like, well, it's better than being alone. Dealing with the bullshit, dealing with someone treating me like shit, dealing with someone cheating on me, that's better than being alone. That's the mindset that I had. And when my last relationship happened during the pandemic, that became very abusive, verbally, a lot of cheating too, and it did end up getting very physically abusive to the point that he almost killed me. That was the wake-up call that I needed when my life was almost taken from me to really step back and start looking within. What was it about Leanne that kept attracting? It was really like the same type of toxic man, but in a different body. And every single relationship that I was in was a little bit worse than the last one. And then when it got to the point for me that I almost died, that was the wake up call that I needed for me to really start to look in the mirror and take some accountability and ask those uncomfortable questions and really learn how to fall in love with myself. Because there was a huge lack of looking for that validation in others when I really needed to get that back to me. So I think it's really important, especially for that woman. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. I know how fucking painful that is. I understand. We've all been through heartbreak that it's gut wrenching. You can't even get out of bed. But what I've come to realize when I think about my own situations is that you're going to get to the point one day that you're going to see that situation was a blessing for you. You were able to remove yourself from something that, thank God you're not locked down to this man and you didn't share a child with him. And now you have to continue dealing with him. And I think eventually you will get to the point that you're going to be thankful to God or whoever it is that you believe in, that this happened this way for a reason because it allowed me to really get back to me. And I think right now you should focus on you because especially in the beginning, like don't worry about getting into a new relationship, putting on a band-aid and not wanting to feel the feelings. No, absolutely feel the feelings that are coming up. But one day you're going to realize, thank you, God, for saving me from this situation. That's what I would tell that person.
Amen. And just to echo on to all of that, it's all messed up. It's all messed up. Everything that my daughter and I went through, and I would go through it all again to have what I have now. That before I filed for divorce, around the time we'll say that I had filed, my then husband would come over to my parents. I'm very fortunate that my parents live close by. So my daughter and I immediately moved in with my parents after that detective called, and he would come over for visits with her and I would have my parents supervise those visits. And I would just go with a bottle of wine in the bathroom, take a hot bath and drink that whole bottle and cry about why am I not enough? Why doesn't he love me? And what did I do wrong? And I look back now and of course I wish I could go back and give that version of myself a hug because that was one of my very lowest lows because I was again on that cusp of divorce and all I wanted was a bright, happy future for my family. And I wanted to be loved. And I'm thankful that my parents and my very close friends and family, I was so surrounded by love. Now that's a different kind of love, but I still had that love. And fast forward to today, and just within the last couple of months, my husband has actually been able to adopt my daughter. And so I had no idea what I was missing out on in this new chapter of my life. I have everything that I wanted from the first time I said I do. I had that vision that I had for myself when I'd first gotten married. I have that all now and more. I have that and then some, and we have so much to look forward to. So 100%, you've got to do what makes you happy. And you've got to, whether it's art or whether it's walking or whether it's crocheting or whether it's
starting a podcast,
yes. Whether it's having girls' night and like playing board games, like whatever it is, reading books, find something that fills your cup that you love doing with other friends, family, and or even by yourself so that you're not relying on somebody else. Maybe you want to learn how to play guitar. I don't know, whatever it is, find something that just makes you happy. Watch some comedy every now and then because laughter is so good for the soul. And just know that things will get better. You've got to believe they'll get better. And all you can control is you. You can control your actions. You can control your thoughts. You can't control what everybody else is doing and saying, but you can control what you're thinking, what you're doing. So focus on doing good, happy things that are going to fill your cup. And then those next steps with whether it's a relationship or not are going to just get that much easier because you're coming to it from a better headspace.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. Now, I want to ask you, what made you get to the point that you wanted to publicly share this really dark time in your life to the world? It's one thing to talk about your friends, to talk to this about your friends or your family or even your support systems that you're really close with. But Why did you decide to go public with sharing your story? And what would you tell someone who's gone through something similar, who's scared to go public, but they have that little inkling, that intuition, that gut feeling that keeps telling them, share your story, but they're kind of like on the cusp of really taking that step?
The reason I wanted to go public with it was because I am an open book about it now. For the longest time, I was ashamed and just feeling like, oh, this happened to me and I can't believe it. And there's something to be said for just getting it off your shoulders. And when I would open up and share with people here and there, they were so supportive. And so it got to the point where I was like, I want to get this out there. I am a part of this story, but I didn't make all of these crazy decisions that catapulted us into this situation. And I'm releasing that. I will, in the areas, again, nobody's perfect. But like I said, I wasn't the one cheating on my husband or going around participating in illegal activity. So why am I the one taking on this shame? And so it was like the more I opened up, it was very cathartic for me. So the other side of that coin is too, it's a long story. There's lots of details and nuances. We only have so much time. And there were a couple of other details, Leanne, I could have shared with you. And it sometimes gets taxing relaying it. And as I get older, I kind of just want this documented to where it's
I think you need to write a book.
I feel like you're maybe the 48th person who's told me that.
Hello, it keeps showing up.
More affirmation. Leanne said it here, folks.
There
okay,
you go.
we'll see. I'm gonna put a pin in that, but that's there, noted. Thank you. Down the line. But yeah, it's documented. And so when people do ask me like, hey, so what's going on? Did I hear whatever? I can be like, girl, go listen to Watch Us Thrive episode XYZ. Or go check out Emotional Abuse is Real, and because it's all there, and like get the popcorn, it's buckle up, it's wild, right? And it also, so it kind of saves me a little bit from just constantly having to rehash it. I've lived it and I've moved on. So sharing on other people's shows is a great opportunity for me to point people to you and for me to kind of just move on and tell it less and less. And what was the other part?
What would you tell someone who wants to share their story but is afraid to do so?
What have you got to lose? Would be the question I would ask you. That for a while, that was a question I asked myself. And I was like, I don't have anything to lose. I'm relieving some of this stress and pressure. I'm releasing I'm not ashamed. I have been an open, honest, reliable person. That's who I was in my marriage, and that's who I am now. And I have nothing to hide. And so I felt like I didn't have anything to lose and to gain if I can empower one person to share their story, or one person who is being gaslit, emotionally abused, whatever that form of abuse may be. If this story can encourage them to make the step that's right for them, then it's worth it to me.
Yep, that's exactly why I have this platform. That's why I'm so open with sharing my story, because when you get messages like that of someone seeing what you've been through and giving them hope in whatever situation that they're going through, that they can make it out on the other side, that is the reason why we share. So let go of the shame, let go of the guilt, let go of the embarrassment. Those are things that we all experience, but we know we are helping someone else just by sharing our story, and you can absolutely do the same. Last thing I want to ask you, thinking back to everything that you've gone through, good, bad, and ugly, what is the most surprising lesson you've learned about yourself?
For a long time, I felt like I would have to tiptoe and dance around difficult topics. And something I've learned about myself would be that I'm okay. I don't want to say going for the jugular. That's not it. But I'm okay calling out the elephant in the room. I was raised in the Midwest and I live in the South now, living in Tennessee. But I grew up in a town where it's like, we're just polite to everyone. And let's just not talk about this. And again, being in the South, bless your heart, bless your heart, whatever. And the type of person I'm a very kind person. I don't believe in being ugly or unkind to people, but I believe in having a directness now because life's too short to just constantly tiptoe around the tulips and not say what we want to say, whether it's positive or negative. And again, the positive or negative, that can be subjective. So I'm okay with being direct. And that can be a difficult position to be in. It's uncomfortable, but some of the most beautiful conversations have come out of just saying what you need to say.
Yes, yes, yes. I couldn't agree with you more. And this is another beautiful conversation that I'm so glad I was able to have with you on this podcast. You're so inspiring. And I just appreciate you again so much for wanting to be so open and honest about your own story. I know it's going to help someone who's listening or watching, and they're going to want to know more about you, follow you, work with you. So I want you to plug in anything that we can do to support you and any last minute piece of advice that you want to leave the listeners with.
Thank you, Leanne. And thank you again for this opportunity. Thank you for all you are doing to empower other people, again, to just do what's right for them. Life is too short. You can connect with me at secretmomhacks.com. I am across all of the socials at secretmomhacks. And then the last word of advice or tidbit of wisdom I would share is to do what makes you happy. Find something that fills your cup every day because you can't give from an empty cup. And so do something for yourself, whether it's a 15-minute walk down the sidewalk or watching 5 minutes of comedy to make you laugh. Maybe it's whipping up a quick home cooked meal, or you know what? Going through the drive-through, because every now and then you got to do that too.
I had McDonald's today. Okay.
Amen, sister.
Thank you so much, Krista. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to staying in touch with you and watching you continue to grow and thrive in the process. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Leanne.